Summer is in full swing, and we decided to spend the day on the city beach. The sun shone brightly, but it did not burn. The sky was cloudless with a pleasant light breeze. It was the perfect day to relax. Allison, the kids, and I went to our favorite place by the water. Allison spread a large striped blanket on the sand. She was wearing a blue swimsuit that accentuated her slender figure. Her long blonde hair fell over her shoulders, and her eyes reflected the sunlight like two lakes. Her smile has always fascinated me. The children, Trevor and Emma, jumped around happily, ready to jump into the water. "Dad, can't we go swimming?" Trevor asked, his brown eyes burning with impatience. "Sure, but don't go too far," I replied, smiling. I've always loved watching their happy faces. I stay under the umbrella, enjoying a cool drink and watching the family idyll. Allison joined the children, laughing and playing with them in the waves. Suddenly, a tall man on the beach caught my attention. He was doing sports nearby. Tall, muscular, with short brown hair and tanned skin. His movements were confident and graceful. I noticed Allison stealing glances in his direction. Her eyes were shining with interest, and she exchanged a few words with him several times. The athlete, noticing her attention, also did not remain indifferent. He smiled and answered her, showing friendliness. "Mom, who is this?" Emma asked, noticing the conversation. "He's just a guy who does sports, honey," Allison replied, her voice soft and calm. I felt a little uneasy, but decided not to pay attention to it. Maybe I'm just exaggerating. But deep down, this feeling wouldn't let go of me. We continued to relax. The children built sand castles, and I tried to relax by reading a book. But my thoughts kept coming back to that moment on the beach. Allison was behaving as usual, but I couldn't get rid of a strange feeling of anxiety. "Hey, John," Allison came up to me, her face beaming with joy. "Do you want to take a walk along the shore?" "Of course, dear," I replied, putting the book aside. I took her hand and we walked along the water, leaving the children under the supervision of neighbors on the beach. We walked in silence, enjoying the silence and the sound of the waves. I felt her hand in mine and tried to convince myself that everything was okay. We were happy, and this day was supposed to be another wonderful memory. "Did you notice that guy?" Allison suddenly asked, a voice light and casual. "Yes, I noticed," I replied, trying not to show my true feelings. "He looks like a professional athlete." "Yes, he's a fitness trainer. He works at our gym," she explained. "A very nice man." I nodded, trying to hide my displeasure. But at that moment, I realized that this feeling of anxiety was not groundless. I should have been more careful. But now I was just enjoying a walk with my wife, trying not to think about the bad things. We returned to our place, where the children had already prepared a picnic. Sitting on a blanket and enjoying a delicious meal, we laughed and joked, as always. But I couldn't get rid of the thought that our ideal world might be under threat. It's been a few weeks since that day on the beach. As the summer went on, Allison went to the gym more and more often. She said she wanted to get in shape. I supported her aspirations, but something inside me worried me. Her new passion for sports has become too intense. One evening, when Allison was going to practice again, I decided to watch her. I was sitting in the living room when she came into the room, already dressed in a gym uniform. "John, I'm leaving," she said, her voice light and carefree. "Okay, honey," I replied, trying to hide my true feelings. "Have a good workout." She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. Then she quickly left the house. I waited a few minutes, then took my jacket and car keys. I didn't want to follow her, but I couldn't ignore my suspicions. I got in the car and drove to the gym, hoping that my fears would be unfounded. When I pulled up to the gym, I saw her car in the parking lot. I got out and headed for the building. There were a lot of people inside, but Allison and the athlete immediately caught my attention. They were on the simulators together, and their communication seemed too friendly. I came closer, remaining unnoticed. Allison laughed and hugged him as he helped her with her exercises. My anxiety was getting worse. "Allison, let's try this simulator," the athlete suggested. "Okay, Mark," she replied, her eyes shining with joy. "You always know what's best for me." I felt the blood rush to my face. Their relationship looked too close. I couldn't ignore it anymore, but I decided not to jump to conclusions. I wanted to hear her explanation. I got home earlier than Allison and tried to calm down. When she returned, I decided to ask her directly. "How was the training?" I asked, trying to speak calmly. "Great," she replied, her face glowing with happiness. "I feel great." "Do you train with Mark often?" I asked, trying not to betray my suspicions. "Yes, he's a great coach," she replied, her voice light. "He helps me achieve my goals." I nodded, but my anxiety wouldn't let go. I should have been more careful. At that moment, I realized that our relationship could be under threat. But I decided not to raise this issue yet. I wanted to gather more information and be sure of my suspicions. A few more weeks have passed. Allison continued to go to the gym every night. My suspicions did not disappear, and I decided to act. One evening, I went to the gym again, determined to see for myself. I drove up to the building and quietly went inside. My heart was pounding in my chest. I knew I had to be careful. I found a secluded place from where I could watch what was happening. Allison and Mark were together again. They laughed and talked like old friends. But I noticed something new: their looks, their touches. It wasn't just a training session. They looked too close. "Allison, you're great," Mark said, his voice full of admiration. "Thank you, Mark," she replied, her face beaming with joy. "I couldn't have done it without your help." "You can always count on me," he added, his hand touching her shoulder. I felt anger wash over me. I couldn't stay away any longer. I approached them, trying to stay calm. "Allison, can I talk to you for a minute?" I asked, my voice trembling with tension. She turned around, her eyes widening in surprise. "John, what are you doing here?" Her voice was full of confusion. "We need to talk," I replied, trying not to raise my voice. We stepped aside. Mark stayed where he was, watching us. "What's going on?" I asked, looking her straight in the eye. "What are you talking about?" Her voice was low and uncertain. "You know what I mean, Allison," I replied. "Your relationship with Mark." She looked away, her face flushed. "It's just friendship," she said, her voice trembling. "It doesn't look like just friendship," I replied. "I saw you together." She sighed, trying to find the words. "John, she began, but couldn't continue. "You betrayed me, Allison," I said, trying to contain my emotions. "I deserve the truth." She was silent, her eyes filled with tears. I realized that I couldn't trust her anymore. I took a step back, feeling the whole world crumble around me. "We'll talk about it at home," I said, trying to stay calm. "I want to leave now." I turned around and walked out of the gym. 1,000 thoughts were spinning in my head. Then Allison ran out after me and got into the car with me. Returning home was agonizing. We were silent all the way. Allison tried to start a conversation, but I interrupted her. I wanted to discuss everything at home in a calm atmosphere. When we finally arrived, I closed the door and sat down in the living room. Allison sat down across from me, her eyes red with tears. "John, please listen to me," she began, her voice trembling. "I'm listening," I replied, trying to keep my emotions under control. "It was a mistake," she continued, her hands shaking. "I never meant to offend you." "A mistake," I repeated, looking her straight in the eye. "What do you call a mistake?" What were you doing at the gym? She lowered her head, her tears dripping onto the floor. I do not know how it happened. Her voice was barely audible. I just felt lonely. Lonely? I asked, feeling anger boiling inside. We've always been together, Allison. What has changed? I can't explain it, she sobbed. Mark was kind to me, supported me. I didn't think I'd go that far. And how far have you gone? I asked, trying to stay calm. She was silent, her face agonized. Answer me, Allison, I insisted. I want to know the truth. We are, she began but stopped, unable to continue. We've been together a few times. I felt the ground slipping away from under my feet. This confession was like a blow to the chest. I couldn't believe that the person I trusted the most would do such a thing. Why did you do that? I asked, looking into her eyes. Why didn't you talk to me? I was stupid, she replied, her voice trembling. I thought I could fix it. But things have gone too far. I stood up, feeling anger and pain overwhelm me. You betrayed me, Allison, I said, trying not to scream. You ruined our family. She sobbed, trying to find the words. I'm ready to do anything to fix this, she said, her voice filled with despair. Please give me a chance. A chance? I asked, feeling tears coming to my eyes. Do you think that everything can be fixed? She paused, not knowing what to say. I felt anger give way to fatigue. I couldn't stay in this house anymore. I couldn't see her. I think we need time, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. You have to leave. John, please don't do this. Her voice was full of pain. I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't do this. I replied, feeling my heart tighten. Go away, Allison. I need time to think about it. She realized that further persuasion was useless. She got up and headed for the door, her tears still pouring. I watched her walk away, feeling abandoned. The house seemed empty and cold without Allison. The children, Trevor and Emma, noticed that something was wrong. They asked questions that were difficult for me to answer. I tried to keep calm and support them despite the storm of emotions inside. One evening, as we were sitting at dinner, Trevor raised his head and looked at me. Dad, where's Mom? What is it? He asked, his voice low and full of concern. I sighed, trying to find the right words. Mom's gone away for a while, I replied, trying to speak calmly. We need time to figure everything out. Emma, sitting next to him, was also listening intently. Her eyes were full of questions, but she was silent. Will she come back? Trevor asked, his voice trembling. I do not know, son, I answered honestly. But I promise that we will manage. The children nodded, trying to understand the difficult situation. I felt like they needed my support and love more than ever. Weeks have passed. I have filed for divorce and custody of the children. The trial was difficult and painful. Allison tried to fight for the rights to children, but I was determined. I knew I had to do everything I could to protect them. One evening, as we were sitting in the living room, Trevor came up to me with a book in his hands. Dad, will you read to me? What is it? He asked, his eyes shining with hope. Of course, I replied, smiling. Which book did you choose? This is our favorite, he said, showing me an old book with a worn cover. I took the book and sat down on the sofa. The children pressed against me from both sides. We read, laughed, and forgot about all the difficulties. These moments were priceless. The court soon ruled in my favor. The rights to the children remained with me. It was a difficult journey, but I felt relieved and confident about the future. My children and I have started a new chapter in our lives. I found a new job to provide for my family. We spent more time together, played sports, walked in the park, and watched movies in the evenings. I tried to do everything to make them feel happy and loved. One day, when we were sitting in the park, Emma looked at me and smiled. "Dad, I love you," she said, her voice low and sincere. "I love you too, honey," I replied, feeling a warmth in my heart. Trevor, sitting next to me, hugged me. "We can handle it, right?" he asked, his eyes full of confidence. "Of course," I replied, smiling. "We will always be together and support each other." Those words were important to me. We started a new life full of hopes and plans for the future. I knew there would be a lot of difficulties ahead, but we will manage. After all, we have the most important thing, our family and love for each other. That's how the story ended. Leave your opinion in the comments about this story. We will be interested to know what you think. Also, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you won't miss new exciting stories. Good luck to you.